So as promised, I wanted to bring you up to speed on a little cool presenting tool that I've been working with. And it's called a Reactive Suite. And I'll put a little bit of information in the post, in the description that accompanies this video. But what I thought I'd do is kind of kill two birds with one stone. I'd show you how this technology works, but I'd also introduce you to a little bit of what my servant leadership training is for the organizations that are out there. This will probably be a 10 to 15 minute video. So if you want to have a look and you want to share this with people inside your organization, by all means, please do. But I'm going to introduce you to what I train my clients on when I do servant leadership. And again, this is just a little bit of a sample deck because people pay for this. So I'm not going to take you through the whole training, but I will introduce you to the high level things that are in the training program, as well as how you can use this technology. Now, for you sales professionals out there, and this is a leadership training, think about the tool I'm using and whether this will help you stand out when you do your presentations. And if you want to learn more, by all means, reach out. I'll connect you with Av, gentleman at Reactive that's been working with me, and happy to put those two worlds together. But think about how you could use this tool. And from a facilitator perspective, if you are in HR, or you a sales leader or marketing leader, and you have to have team meetings and presentations where you want to engage people, follow along as well, because I'm going to be doing some things that are, kind of cool. So let's say, we're going to circle some things. And remember, this is a sample deck. My property. Okay, and we're going to do a little bit of fun and show you how to write things down on presentations. But again, ignore my chicken scratch as we go through this. So before we start, what I thought I'd do is show you a little video and give you a little bit idea to understand what some of the misconceptions are about servant leadership out there today. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close this one first. We're going to discard that link and we're going to bring that video up and we're going to play that video for you now. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so you all can see it. Okay. So again, I am 1 day trained on this technology. So imagine what you could do if you were using it. And let's watch that video. The misconception out there, and Jody, you went through this with us at MLSC, the misconception around figuring out if servant leadership is good or not for businesses, people think it's soft. They think it's about being nice to your people so they stay and creating a nice communication model so everyone feels valued, which is all part of it. And it is about serving and putting your people first, but it's still all with the intention of developing individuals and putting the proper processes in place to be a servant leader. Now, if you're doing that, and you went through this with your one-on-ones in the past and your professional development strategies, you're probably better to speak to it, your skills are being enhanced, your leadership just in your role is growing, your exposure is growing. So how do you not get better at your job if you're not learning more because you have a servant leader? And if you're better at your job and most people in the organization are getting the same type of leadership, how does the profitability of the company not grow? You're more efficient, you have a better output because you're better at what you do because you have that servant leader, and it's going to drive your bottom line. I mean, what are your thoughts? Because you went through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it actually pushes your employees to know that they can do more, be more, grow into, what they envision for themselves, which in turn has to be good for business too.
So why do I want to start by showing you this video? Well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, if you haven't been introduced to servant leadership, there is this misconception that there's no accountability and it's not necessarily measurable and it's not necessarily great for business. And individuals will have a free rein as long as they're happy. And I, as a leader, have to take on all the problems and no one gets held accountable. And how are we going to know if this works? And is it good for profitability? I'm going to take you through a deck that I train in organizations that counters those misconceptions about servant leadership. I believe that people are not invested in servant leadership because they're not aware that it's actually a great business process, let alone really good for mental health in your organization and developing people's skills. But there's a process you can put in place that's measurable. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I'm actually going to bring this full screen for a moment, and maybe I'll shrink my little head here a little bit. Okay. And let's drop me, let's bring me down here. Okay, so Again, misconception on servant leadership is you can't measure it and it's not transferable. You have to deal with someone who has the characteristics that, they're really good with people and people gravitate towards them. And that is all important. You have to be willing to serve, but there's a process you can put in place. So let me just at a high level explain to you what I can do for your organization. So number one, I open up every training just really, I believe in education, right? And I believe in the fact that if we can learn the skills and we can retain them, we will go out and we will perform. But to do that, I need some level of, connectivity, and both with my boss or anyone that's facilitating training. So I always usually start a training session with a little bit of who are you? What do you do within the organization? And then a little bit about what I do. And then we do a little bit of an icebreaker and have some fun, okay? But here's what I wanted to share. These are the things that are in the servant leadership, the 5 anchors, and one of them combines 2 anchors. So, first off that I'm going to talk about in the training that I think is really important for your team is we're going to talk about servant leadership at a high level. What is it and why is it good for business? And why is it good for your mental health as a leader and good for the mental health of your team, and ensures that they're going to have the skills to succeed to help grow the company, their careers, and be happy while you do it. Well, the first anchor is actually the one-on-one, and that's the consistent weekly updates that you may be doing today, right? And that looks like I sit down with my boss every week and we talk about the business. Are we doing personal development? I don't know. Are we reviewing numbers? I don't know. But before you can do any of that, the first thing that you absolutely need to learn as a leader is you got to build trust. No one's going to want to do a one-on-one with a leader who they don't trust, because they're going to be, well, what are their motives? Are they just giving me the numbers because they're going to fire me? Do they truly want to help me? Boy, if I say I don't know how to do something, am I going to get in trouble? And so you've got to build connection. And so I train the teams on a connection meeting and what that looks like. And then I train your leaders on how to do weekly one-on-ones with KPIs, but focused on the behaviors that make people successful. And then this one's always fun. Okay, so I'm going to circle this one nice and big. MBWA, management by wandering around or walking around. It's a Tom Peters theory from the 80s. And when I first heard it, I thought it was crazy. It sounds so aloof. Where's the accountability in wandering around? And so I changed that to coaching during the game. And I'll teach your leaders how to coach live and in the game. And I will teach them not only how to communicate with individuals on the floor, in the shop, in the showroom, in the boardroom, whatever that looks like, where your people perform the work. But I'll teach them how to empathize with your frontline team or the people in those work sessions, and how they, by empathy, they can figure out what's defective in the process and go back and fix the things only they are empowered to do at a senior level to make the process easier back in the field for your team and their customers. And I train the behaviors behind that. And then the next anchor, which is technically the 4th anchor, is we talk a lot about personal development strategies. Now, here's what most organizations do, if at all, is they have a promotable list. And it's the 10% of people that we really like and think might get promoted one day. And there's nothing wrong with that, just to be clear. But we need a path for everybody to be developing their skills. If they're doing their day job well today, engagement is about feeling like you matter in an organization. And the only way you feel like you matter is if you can measure that you as an individual are having an impact. And so I teach leaders how to have personal development strategies for all of their employees. It is great for developing next in lines. It's great for driving productivity because people are learning new skills other than just their day job, or skills that help them with their day job. And it drives that profitability of the organization while growing the careers of others and keeping people engaged. That is what attracts people. That is what retains people. So I take people through all of that. And then the last one is, oh boy, this one, eh? Oh, we've all dealt with performance reviews. And I should probably manage my eraser here because I just, really messed that one up. But let's try underlining it with my chicken scratch instead. So written performance reviews. Why are those important? Well, if you're doing the first 4 steps really well, so let's go back a step. Let's erase all this. Remember, the first one is the connection meeting. Okay, so we're building trust. Then we're doing weekly one-on-ones. Well, if we're doing weekly one-on-ones and we are managing by walking around or coaching during the game, Good thing the eraser works on this, right? And we are sorry about that. Let's try that again. We are coaching during the game. Your performance reviews become so much easier to write because you have 52 weeks of data. And if you ask an employee where they get disengaged in an organization in the context of performance reviews, it's because their boss writes a review from what they can remember because they don't have this process. So whether your performance is positive or your performance is negative and you need to improve and I need to give you a rating, I will react much better as an employee if we're having ongoing conversations and your yearly review is truly a yearly review. Both for what I do great, because that's going to make me feel real good that you're giving me a high performance review with the data and the observations to back it up that are behavior-based so I can continue and go and produce that work. But if I'm struggling and I'm kind of, hey, this is going to a different level of accountability and I am needs improvement as an example in an organization, and you just gave me examples from the last 12 months, how do I argue that? It helps me focus. Now, the thing in the performance review is you can't write 52 weeks of feedback. And so I teach your team when they're doing the one-on-ones, how do they identify something that needs to go in a performance review so they don't forget it? And how do they identify things that just need to be coached or recognized that are live and in the moment, and their micro behaviors that are time bound versus behaviors that are setting in that are longer term and consistent. And so all those things, when you put them together, it's what servant leadership is I'm making myself accessible to you as a leader within a process to give you feedback, to repeat the stuff that's going really well, observe your career growing so I can promote for you when we get to that growth opportunity, get on the floor, observe how you're engaging with our customer and give you things that are going to help you succeed, whether that's coaching, training, or resources, or process change, and then summarizing that all up at the end of the year so we get you going for next year. It's measurable. You can put it in a process. The KPIs are in your one-on-ones. If you want to measure how successful this is, measure your employee churn and measure your profitability. That is the biggest critique I have around most leadership programs is they hide away from the measurable, saying, well, I train the behavior, and you got to generate the result. I'm not there. No. If servant leadership is working well and you are doing all these things, your productivity and your profitability should absolutely rise, and it should be measured because your leaders are helping your people get better at what they do. If they're better at what they do, they serve your customer even better. If you want to learn more, call me. I'm happy to chat. Send me a message on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Let's dive a little deeper. Let's see if I can help you. Now, what I'm not showing you, so you don't think I just showed you an agenda slide, is then how I start to do some videos. My man, Simon Senek's in here, John Maxwell and 5-level leadership. The good old John Harbaugh of the Baltimore Ravens and his definition of servant leadership. So we have some engaging fun. And then we talk about strategy, who you say you are to your customers, but what you're doing internally to help your team deliver on that and the gap you need to close. And then we talk about those anchors and I take you through each one by one. So after all that is said and done, if you want to learn more, zoom in, zoom out, eh? If you want to learn more, I am here and I would love to help. Okay. And as I learn this technology, which you can see I'm still learning as we speak, as I learn this technology, if I can help you with it as I become an expert, I am one day of practice this with my ThinkPad tool. This will absolutely be a part of my sales proposals moving forward. I'm going to actually build 2 training programs. I'm going to build a remote leadership training program that complements all the leadership programs I have today that's going to use tools like this. And I'm going to bring up a remote sales training program so your sales professionals can really be standing up from home, because this is a tool. What we haven't talked about is, what are the behaviors? What are the behaviors before you use a tool like this? How are you researching the client? How do you put those things together and match them against your value proposition? How do you ask for the opportunity? How do you get educated on the decision maker, the industry, the opportunity before you ever pick up the phone? I think if you add all those things into a tool like this, selling remotely isn't going to be as difficult as you can because most of your customers aren't in the office. Anyways, if you want to learn more, again, call me, here to help. Av, I hope I did this justice on my first go around with reactive, but I'm a fan and I can't wait to get more practice with this solution. It's awesome.